2, we're going to call the meeting to order. We'll rise, pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we do roll call, we're going to turn the meeting over to Chief Bucla here for a quick second.
Good evening. Earlier today was a memorial service for Officer John Davis of the Granville Police Department. Officer Davis worked for the Lowell Police Department from 1998 to 2000 before he left for Granville Police Department, and he served there for 18 years. He was a colon cancer survivor, and then he got a clean bill of health, but then when he went for a 6-month checkup, the cancer had spread through his body, and he lost his battle with colon cancer last week. So at this time, I'd like to, in honor of his service for Lowell Police Department, I'd like a moment of silence for John and his family. Thank you.
Thanks. Sue will have you call roll now.
Councilmember Canfield.
Here.
Councilmember Chambers.
Here.
Councilmember Salcedo.
Here.
And Mayor DeVore.
I am here. Item 2, we'll look for a motion to approve the consent agenda for tonight.
I'll make that motion.
I'll support.
Discussion or changes? Sue?
Councilmember Canfield.
Yes.
Mayor DeVore.
Yes.
Councilmember Salcedo.
Yes.
Councilmember Chambers.
Yes.
All right, item number 3 in our packets this week, there's a resignation letter addressed to Mr. Burns from Jeff Phillips. We'll look for a motion to accept his resignation.
I'll make a motion that we accept Jeff's resignation from City Council.
And I'll support.
Okay. Sue?
Mayor DeVore.
Yes.
Councilmember Salcedo.
Yes.
Councilmember Chambers.
Yes.
Councilmember Canfield.
Yes.
Okay, now we need to open up the application period for his open seat.
Correct. The city charter states that you must fill the vacancy within 30 days after announcing it. So tonight would be the night of accepting the resignation. So in 30 days, that position needs to be filled. Requirement to serve on the Lowell City Council is eligible voting age, city resident for 1 year, and not to be in default to the city, back taxes, water bills, things of that nature. Those are the requirements to serve on the council. So you probably need to set up a process. If we recall, when Councilman Thielander resigned, we accepted the resignation on a Monday at a council meeting, and then a week following Thursday was the deadline, and then at the next city council meeting, since we only had one applicant, that person was selected. To my knowledge, 2 letters have already been submitted of interest already. You may want to consider an interview process. You may not. That's totally council's discretion. You can do what you so choose to fill that spot. But that was the practice we did last time when we had a 10-day period before we had the deadline, then we brought it back to council.
So at our next meeting, then we could have the applicants in and kind of do a...
You could do it that way. I mean, that's an option. Another thing is maybe you just designate a special meeting to do the interviews.
I think we will need a special meeting because Greg will be absent, correct, for the 3rd. So if we just have that 10-day application process that takes us right up to the 30th, right? We close it that Friday, then we can set a time for interviews based on how many applicants we have at that December 3rd meeting for a time. Like Greg can be there once he's back.
Right, but we don't need a super majority for that decision. 3 council members could make that decision.
Correct.
So
But it'd be nice to have you involved.
I'd rather not take any blame for what decision. I'm gone for 6 months. Whatever works.
So we can just, we'll wait till that meeting on the 3rd and see how many applicants we have. See if Greg's gonna even come back, and then we'll decide what we need to do from there.
So we're gonna hold them open for another 10 days and then close it?
Close it on Friday the 30th. We want to do that?
Do you want to close it on Thursday or Friday, so we have them ahead of time? Because you'll get your packets on Friday.
Yeah, we should close it on Thursday, so we have them in our packets on Friday to review.
Okay,
Is that good?
yes. So
Okay.
close, say, at 5 o'clock
Perfect.
Thursday?
Perfect, the 29th. Everybody good with that? Okay. Right, item 4, citizen comment for items that are not on the agenda tonight.
Good evening, Perry Beecham, reside at 924 Riverside Drive. Got in the mail today, and I did this with the city, the Look Fund. Again, this has to do with the fencing that I'm trying to promote up at the cemetery. I did get a grant from the Look Fund, and that's going to puts us as about 2/3 of the budget that we need to do that. And again, with the weather, again, I'm now thinking that we will do this in the spring, and I'll give the Rich and the DPW exactly where they want it and go from there. So again, still looking for a few more donations, but we're 2/3 of the way there. Thank you.
Thanks, Pierre. Anybody else? All right, old business, item 5, number A, South Broadway coordination and bond budget, Michael.
Brian Newhoff has recently brought forward several issues pertaining to the completion of the road and sidewalk work on South Broadway between Ottawa Street and the railroad tracks, and the coordination of the King Milling site development on the old Michigan Wire property. Brian Newhoff is proposing to postpone the paving and concrete work on the South Broadway until spring 2019 to allow work to progress on King Milling's development site. Postponing the right-of-way work will ensure the new paving and concrete is not damaged in the course of development activities at the former Michigan Wire site, and will also ensure the final road and curb work will align well with the proposed drive approaches. Furthermore, as a result of the recent lockout by the Michigan Infrastructure and Transportation Association involving operating engineers local 324, subcontractors are proposing steep price increases to complete work prior to the end of the regular construction season. The lockout resulted in a backlog of work, and contractors have raised prices on asphalt by nearly 60% and concrete by 15% due to the high demand. Postponing the South Broadway paving project and concrete work should result in a more normal pricing structure in the spring. Proceeding with the work this season will result in a $17,000 increase to the budget. Finally, as part of the planned rerouting of the King Milling truck traffic from downtown, the traffic signal in Bowles and Hudson was added to the $3.2 million bond issued in 2017 for the South Broadway Utility and Street Project. However, upon the attorney's review, it was determined that the bond was not structured to include the addition of traffic signal work to the overall scope of work. Therefore, the city's $60,000 share of the signal work will have to be paid from another fund to correct the issue. Since the signal is located on a major street, the major street fund can be used to pay for the work, and there's adequate funds available in that fund for this activity. I'm recommending that the Lowell City Council approve postponing the South Broadway paving and concrete work until spring 2019, and also approve it would be a budget amendment of $60,000, which we can do at a later date from the major street fund to pay for the traffic signal installation at the intersection of Hudson and Bowes. Brian Vilmont from Brian Newhoff is here to answer any questions and explain what's occurring.
Mike, would that be a total of $67,000, or the $17,000 increase in the budget is their pocket cost and not ours?
No, actually, the $60,000 has always been what our cost was for the light. That's an addition, so it would be $77,000 then.
Yeah, $77,000.
But the $60,000 is something we'd already agreed to pay. It just, we can't use the bond proceeds, we'd have to go to major street, which are our surplus funds available.
I just have a question. This was a contract that we signed to have this work done, and normally there's a date that work needs to be completed by, or there's penalties to the contractor. I just don't understand how market situations with a contract that we have already signed becomes our problem.
Oh, so originally when the project was under design, that section of Broadway from the railroad tracks basically to Ottawa, we were planning on reconstructing that and rebuilding as part of the project. And the original timeline was going to be that a lot of the work, most of it would get done in the spring and early summer, and then we would take a break for the summer wheat harvest to allow King Milling to get in and out of there with as many trucks as come in, and then we finish up in the fall. Well, during the design process and some discussion with King Milling, they then acquired the Michigan Wire property. And so in our discussions with Jim and Brian Doyle and those guys, they said, well, we want to make sure that this work on the street matches what we want to do with our site, and we don't know what we want to do with our site yet. So the discussion was with city staff is rather than hold up the whole project, let's leave that portion of Broadway, so from the railroad tracks to Ottawa, out of the reconstruction for now. The money's still there as part of the bond, but let King Milling do that as part of their site work, so it's timed at the same time, but the money was still part of the bond. So that was the original plan. Then as work progressed, and actually K&R got done a little sooner than they thought, they were able to put some more crews on it than they had originally thought they might be able to, they started finishing early. So they pretty much had almost all their work done before the summer wheat harvest was squared away. Then there was some discussion, well, if they're that far ahead, maybe it makes sense to put that work back into the contract. So to answer your question is that the curb work and the pavement work for that section of Broadway between railroad tracks and Ottawa was never in K&R's original contract. We pulled it out in the thinking that it would be done with the King Milling site work. So that's why when we thought about adding it back in, it was extra work that they hadn't originally planned on. So that's where that change in timing came about. So after some more discussion here this fall with King Milling and where they're at, we have the design for all that curb work squared away. We think if we worked it out with their approved site plan, but King Milling said, well, can we still time it with our work on the site? Because we're going to be running trucks in and out of there. There's a lot of concrete trucks for their foundational work. They didn't want to bump up and over curbing that was maybe unsupported on either side or over a walk yet that would have been unsupported. You know, normally when we do reconstruction, all that curb work and sidewalk work is tied in between other pieces of paving, so there's protection on the edges. So in response to some of their effort for wanting to coordinate and kind of going back to the original plan of having that work coordinated with the site work so that we didn't build some of it and then have to have it being rebuilt. Now, a rebuild, if it got destroyed or wrecked because of the King Milling site work, would be on their dime, not on the city's dime. However, we didn't think it would look very good to citizens if we built something and then had it partially trashed during construction just to get rebuilt again. So we thought, let's go back to the original coordination plan of letting that street work be done with the site work. Sorry, a little bit of a long history, but that's kind of the progression of events for the timing.
When was it approved to take this work out of the contract with the city?
Back in the design process was shortly after we had done the bond and had started the design work. I don't have a date for you, but it was in that.
3 months ago, 6 months ago?
Oh, a year ago.
It was right when I got here.
Yeah,
I mean, this was like in the middle, right when I hired in was when all this happened.
Yep.
Where I was obviously wasn't involved in the design engineering. And it was kind of,
So that was the time. It was all in an effort to try to coordinate and have the least amount of disruption to something that was put in new.
I've been involved with doing projects like that quite a bit. And I've never had anybody stop doing a street so I could build my building. I've had new curbs we've had to go over with same size equipment they're running. We gravelled them in. If we broke them, we repaired it. It just seems to me we're trying to give away something that it's going to end up costing us more money. Right now we're looking at, an overrun of money up by 15% on the concrete and 60% on the asphalt. if we would have kept going forward when K&R got finished and we had the timeline and we had the time frame, we wouldn't even have this discussion and we'd stay in budget.
Yeah, they couldn't have finished it before the winter or the summer wheat harvest break. They didn't have time to do that. It would have had to have been done afterwards anyway. And that unfortunately, that might have the lockout occurred in September. So it was right when we were just getting ready to get started again, or would have started again, is when the timing of the lockout occurred. And unfortunately, that affected a lot of contracts throughout the state. That was something nobody really anticipated. And even though it really affected union contracts, it had the ripple effect on also a lot of non-union contracts, because they took some non-union operators did some of the union work in the meantime right towards the end there. So it's an unfortunate timing of events that, yeah, we wish we could have had control over, but we didn't. And as I said, the effort of it was really not to try to delay, because we all want to get things done sooner than possible, but the idea was to try to coordinate as much as possible, because we thought, especially if the public sees a brand new road get in, and then, yes, agreed, if they didn't protect it and broke it, they'd have to replace it, but it just creates a bad perception as well. So that's where we were trying to coordinate with King Milling there. And again, for some of it, per their request of coordination.
As a citizen of this town, I don't see any problem. If they break it, they fix it. I personally wouldn't have a problem with it. I don't think many people would. What's more upsetting is if you remember correctly, I asked about why we can't get the sidewalks in. We just had Christmas through Lowell. If you were downtown, you've seen the volumes of people. We have people going to the fairgrounds from Main Street. What did they have to walk on? You know, there's no sense of urgency to get any of this done. We're going to drag this out till spring now, and there's no guarantee that we're going to be saving any money. It can end up costing us more money. How these decisions are always made is beyond me, and you guys should have been taking more responsibility to make sure the bids were in place to get it done, no matter what the outcome was. It's a short, in my opinion, it was a short-term look that you guys looked at. You're playing with the money that we've had bonded and allocated with, and now it's going to end up costing everybody more money.
Well, and I think the intent is, you know, short of the MIDA issue that I don't think anybody had control over, working with a spring contractor, again, we've talked with King Milling and their representative from Dan Voss. They're going to be getting bids for their site work as well, and we have full review rights of all that as well. So it's not a blank check for them to do whatever they want. We've looked at it to make sure it's commensurate with the same bids that we received for this year's work. So it will be a bid situation for that. And our goal is to, again, try to get the best long-term value out of the city's money. That's really was our motivation for all that. We wish that things would have gone faster. I think one, for instance, where it has been good is that with the extra crews that K&R threw at it this past spring, they were able to get a lot of the work done and not have to carry a lot of it past the summer break into fall, which actually was very fortuitous because of the MIDA situation, but it also lessened our inspection time. So even we had planned for inspection time yet, and still will, for the south section of Broadway between railroad tracks and Ottawa. But even with that time planned in, we're still going to be about $15,000 under our planned budget, which is money that we don't spend and the city saves. So that's a big piece of this, is some of that we were able to help out with. And like I say, there's a $15,000 savings that will occur yet.
And I'm sure by spring you'll probably find a place to spend that $15,000.
No, sir.
You know, bids go out and bids are bids. Why the whole project never got bidded is way beyond me. I've done this a lot of times, and you bid the entire project.
We didn't have a locked-in price for this project then?
For the K&R work, yes, we did, yep.
And the paving was part of that?
The paving for the section between the railroad tracks and Ottawa was not part of the K&R contract, no. It was money that was still bonded for, but we knew we'd set that aside and planned for paving when they did the work on the site work.
So it was taken out like a year ago?
Yeah, in design, it was planned that we wouldn't build that work with the K&R contract.
Speaking of design, I'm on the Parks and Recs board. There used to be a water line that served Rec Park there, and apparently no one was aware that it was there, and it got removed during this project, and that's going to get put back Do you know or not?
We've been coordinating with Rich on how best to do that. I think that was an old line, my understanding, went to some fountains and didn't have a lot of the protections that new lines have, so blow-offs or ways to re-chlorinate in an easy way. I think there's a lot of those new requirements for that weren't in the old line that we wanted to look at before we replaced it. So I think that's still under some discussion with.
Right, but they did have a line there that got taken away from them accidentally.
Yep,
And that should be restored. Granted, it just serves a couple of drinking fountains, but when guys are playing ball and stuff there, or gals, it's just a drink out of a fountain. Existing may not be, state-of-the-art copper line or whatever, but it's still a line that provided water to that site and for just knocking down dust and different things. That line should be restored as part of that.
We can work with Rich on that. Yeah.
But my understanding is that's going to be a cost to the city.
Yeah, why, if the line was there, why would it cost the city to have it reconnected?
Well, I think that it was a matter of trying to bring an old line up to a new code, a new standard. Because I don't think that existing line had a way to be blown off. I don't think it had a way to be rechlorinated if it needed to be. If you had a flood in there, I don't think there was any extra fittings for that. So
Well, it's an existing line, it's kind of grandfathered in to that. I mean, you took the service away from it, that's where it needs
Well,
to be
the
restored.
city did, we did. I mean, it was a city project, and I think the other part was, I'm not aware that there was any easement across the old Michigan Wire property for the service either. I think that was something we were looking at, trying to see if there was a way to fix
Yeah.
that as well.
We've run into that before, it's a prescriptive easement. If something has been there, then there's an easement just granted based on the time that it's been there usually. I mean, but it took something away from the city that they had. And,
Yeah.
it shouldn't cost us money to get it put back. And I understand the line may not meet current standards for 100% safety, but it was there and working, and, it can be updated at some point, but if it doesn't get reconnected, then it can't be updated at some point. You've lost it. It just seems like I heard a number of 15 or 20,000 to get reconnected, which seems like a ridiculous amount.
And I mean, the contractor that busted the line, they carry insurance liability, they should have repaired it right then and there. It sounds to me like they got ripped up and tore up, and somebody said, well, that's fine, probably goes to nowhere, and moved on. So something underground got destroyed and not repaired. It could have just as easily been fiber optic cable. We wouldn't have just left that lay in the ground and not repaired it. So I don't understand the water line. That just kind of just chews on me the more I think about it, but it should have been repaired right then and there. And you guys are the ones that are overseeing the project for the city, correct? So you should have taken the initiative, or your company, to make sure that something that got destroyed got repaired. Because now we've asked everybody at the ball field all year to go out there with no running water.
But no, thank you for your explanation on the paving. The fact that it was taken out a year ago at the beginning of the project, that kind of clears that up for me. It just didn't really make sense how we could be wrapping up a project and go, oh, it's got to wait because of cost. But
Yep,
that makes
totally
sense.
understand that, yep, totally understand.
Thanks, Brian.
Yep, thank you.
I don't know if this can be a good time or not, Mike, but I know we've been looking at doing FRPs on some different things, on some different, I think if I have council support or a majority, maybe looking at getting FRP out there for RFP, for a new, look at different engineers. So we get a,
So are you looking at like an engineer of record where you just have one
Yes.
engineer?
Yes.
Rather than having multiple engineers?
yes.
Okay. If that's what the council wants me to do, I'd be willing to, when I'll be doing it, I'm totally do it.
Are you making that motion?
Yeah, I would like to make that a motion.
We've talked about looking at other things. We did move a couple things around. We got PCI in instead of Cascade, but we kind of got started on that list and never worked through it completely. That's probably something we should discuss in a work session or something at some point. A little more involved, but I think more than, there's a few things we should look at. I agree with that.
Support for Marty's motion? on an RFP for engineers. I'll support. Anybody else want to talk about it?
I'd like to make sure that we're doing the right thing, and I'd like to have a little bit more information regarding Pine Newhoff as to, since the only thing they did, is it a reoccurring thing? I mean, is it, do we speak with them? Do we put more onus and things that go, what we're looking for from our engineering company as well, too? I mean, it's easy to do that part of it. I want to make sure that we've done everything we can do to find out what are the issues. I'm hearing this one, but have there been other issues with them in the past as well? Or is this just a one time, and do we work with them? Do we try to figure out what do we do going forward, other than just, that's it? I'm not opposed to the RFP, but I also want to make sure we're doing it the right way as well, too.
I think that's what Greg's work session.
Yeah, I think that maybe a future agenda item, we just talk about this again, maybe.
Maybe what the idea is maybe what I do is, say maybe first of the year, I have an RFP drafted, and I bring it to council, maybe a process that we could look at, if that's what you want to do. And then we can address it at that time.
Right, it was about a year ago that we started this
We
process.
had talked about only having an engineer of record then too, right?
Yes.
It's just slim or to streamline.
Yeah, no, I don't think there've been any repeated
No,
problems here.
no,
And,
no.
Brian did a good job of explaining, how this came about with the asphalt and concrete cost, and,
I
that's
just think
a
we need
good
one person
explanation.
to go to, or one firm to go to,
Yep.
for project after project after project. So that when there's a process, then that's the process, right? And we know that that's the process.
But it is just good business, whether it's a municipality or a privately owned business, that no matter how well someone takes care of you, every 4 or 5 years, you just kind of go look and see where the market is on things, make sure you're not paying too much for insurance or other things. So we talked about this a year or so ago,
Yeah.
that we should do that. We kind of got off the track a little bit on it, but I think Mike is correct that we just, after the first of the year, we sat down and look and pick a few things that we look at. Brian Newhoff has done a good job for us in the past. There's going to be bumps in the road. They'll look at taking care of the water line for us. We've got an explanation on the paving and concrete cost, but it's just good business on our part to look at some of this stuff. But I think we should look at, probably a few areas rather than just pick out one.
All right. Well, there's motion and support, so we'll vote on that. Sue?
Councilmember Salzweedl?
Yes.
Councilmember Chambers?
Yes.
Councilmember Canfield?
No.
And Mayor DeVore?
Yes. All right, and then a motion to postpone the South Broadway project.
I would make a motion that the city council approve postponing the South Broadway paving and concrete work until spring 2019, and also approve a transfer of $60,000 from the major street fund to pay for the traffic signal installation at the intersection of Hudson and Bose.
I'll support.
Okay, any discussion on that? Sue?
Councilmember Chambers?
Yes.
Councilmember Canfield?
Yes.
Mayor DeVore?
Yes.
And Councilmember Salzweedl?
Yes.
All right, thanks, Brian.
Yep, thank you very much. Appreciate your time tonight.
Item B, proposal 1. I need a show of hands, how many people are here to speak on proposal 1? All right, then we don't need a list today. Up to the podium, please. You can go first, just your name and address, and then your 5 minutes.
Christine Beard, 2605 Ballasburg Park Drive, Lowell, Michigan. I'm a Lowell lifer, 56 years worth, graduated from Lowell High School in 1980. My parents are Lowell lifers. They graduated from Lowell High School in 1957. My grandparents and great-grandparents were some of the first settlers in Virgins Township. We started a dairy farm about 150 years ago. And I give you that little bit of background because I want you to know a little bit about me. There's 6+ generations in our bloodline from the city of Lowell. I didn't move here a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Been here a long time, and so is my family. I support the medical and recreational marijuana proposal one that passed and what we've had in our state of Michigan and dispensaries in Lowell. There's 280,000 Michigan medical marijuana cardholders that have to drive to Lansing or Nunica or wherever they're driving to get the medication that they want and prefer. There's citizens in the city of Lowell that are driving that distance. However, if we were to go to Lowell Medical or any other doctor around the city, they call or we take a prescription to Walgreens or Myers and our medication is filled. So I'm in support of a dispensary in the city of Lowell for the people of Lowell who prefer that type of medication to drive a mile or two to get what it is they want and need. You know that the recreational vote passed in the city of Lowell and Lowell Township. I think for Jens it did not. But the citizens of Lowell said yes. And it may not be your preference, but you were elected to represent the citizens of Lowell. And the citizens of Lowell said yes to recreational marijuana. That's what they want. So I hope that you vote to opt in because you are serving the citizens of Lowell. The location, it doesn't have to be on Main Street. I've been here to a couple meetings and I'm quite thankful there's only a half of a room full instead of standing room only. But this 10 city blocks right here, it doesn't have to be right here. Polly's and Jet's Pizza building is sitting vacant out in the corner of Cumberland and M21.
That's in the township though.
That's okay, they voted yes.
Okay.
We have no control on that.
I'm only saying it's 2 or 3 miles away. There's homes. I've been to some dispensaries in Lansing. They're in a house. There's homes within a mile or two from here. My point is that the dispensary or dispensaries doesn't have to be in the 10 blocks of Main Street. Think outside the box. There's other places that it could be, and those are all rules and regulations and things that you agree to set up if you were to say yes and set it up. I feel that the location or the dispensaries should be stocked with product from Lowell growers and shuttled around by Lowell transport couriers, whatever you want to call them. You have to buy a license, and the licenses are anywhere from $5,000 to $25,000 or $50,000 to even be part of this new aspect that we have in the state of Michigan. So if it is voted and opted in, I feel like the citizens of the city of Lowell should have first dibs rather than a big box organization coming from Battle Creek or Kalamazoo or Colorado moving in to set up shop in the city of Lowell. So I'd like you to consider that as well. And then finally, what I would like you to do tonight is agree to set up a committee or a team of 8 or 10 or 12 people that goes around to the communities, the municipalities that are opting in and listen to what they're doing and get their paperwork and things and bring it back to you and share with you once a month for the next 6 months what's going on in the other communities and what they're voting on and what they're agreeing to, so that 6 months or 8 months from now you could opt in or whatever you want to do to say, yeah, this is right for the city of Lowell. We're going to have it over there, and this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it. I don't feel like the council should have to go run around and gather all this information when a committee of people could possibly do that and bring the ideas back to you and share them with you, and you make your decisions from that. And we all work together. And I would like to serve on that team. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I am David Overholt, and I've spoke here once before. I'm from Sidney, Michigan, Montcalm County, just a little bit north of here. I just want to start out a little bit here with the voters of Michigan overwhelmingly approved Proposal 1 by 56%. In Kent County, they approved the measure by 55.5%. In Lowell, that number rose to 59%, is what the voters in Lowell approved recreational marijuana. I know the city of Lowell's already opted out of the MMFLA, which is the medical version. Medical version was put in place by our legislators recently to put regulation into the marijuana world similar to what we have in alcohol. Without having that regulation put into place, obviously you see what's going on around the state. We have all these caregivers, we have all these people actually breaking the laws in the McDonald's and Burger King's exchanging meds illegally. This law was put into place and signed by our governor to correct that and bring regulation into the format. But as the cities and the communities around opt out, in my eyes, they're doing nothing but helping the black market industry. They're actually basically guilty of committing a crime themselves, I feel, because you're helping the industry survive rather than putting the regulation that our governor and regulators put into place so that we could regulate this in a business atmosphere like alcohol was. So you're actually committing a crime after the actions of the crime. You're helping that exist as commissioners, and obviously the people of Lowell have actually spoken pretty loudly what they'd like to see here. Now, obviously, with this new law comes different versions. If you sit on your hands and you don't do anything, you allow as many applications to come in as you want. If you opt out, that means no applications can come in, and that's the end of the story until you change that zoning policy. Well, in the past, most of the people haven't understood zoning. Well, we're here to explain now. With this new law in place, the people of Lowell still have another chance to do this if they zone this out. They would have 7 days to go to the election board and ask for a special election in Lowell, get 254 licensed signatures, and you would have a special election in the city of Lowell that would determine whether you would have the 5 licenses. And that's one of the things that happens when politicians start to create zoning ordinances that don't go along with the people's wishes of the community. So I have plenty of copies of this for anybody that'd like to see it and explain how it's done for the community of Lowell. I'm not here to do that for them, but if a resident does do it, that's their option. This is also a map of all the counties that opted in and out. The green is in, the red is out, and you can see pretty much from Detroit nearly all the way across to Lake Michigan is green at that level. So I'm pretty sure that the people on this side of the state want to see some format of regularized, safe access for their veterans and their sick people. And without opting into medical, which we asked you to do before so you could get this in line for when recreational did come into play, but you opted to do none of the above. So now we're here with no medical and now recreational. But now the people have a choice. They can go in and ask for the people to have a special election in Lowell, which I think you're going to see a lot in a lot of smaller communities now, ask for these special elections. And it's going to be a cost to the communities. And if it passes, once it passes, it is law. So if the people voted in, it is law. And with that being said, thank you for your guys' time. I appreciate your efforts. I'm not here trying to pick on anybody. I'm just trying to show the people they have an option if the community does opt out. And before you didn't have that option. It was a done deal. So with that being said, thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
My name is Joyce Fulkerson. I live on 622 North Jefferson Street in Lowell. Been here for about 22 years, something like that. I'm a nurse, registered nurse by what I do is for work. And marijuana is not a drug in my book. It's an illegal, well, it's legal now supposedly, but it's not a drug. It's not medicine. And the last thing I would like to see in Lowell is for marijuana to be sold. I know there's black market, but I remember driving down Lowell and seeing some flag in front of one of the businesses about medical marijuana or marijuana here, and it turns me off. I really don't want Lowell to be known for selling marijuana. It's not anything that I want for my kids or anybody that I love. And that's important to me. I know that a lot of people voted for it, but a lot of people voted against it too. So I'm one of those. I would really support you if you don't sell marijuana here.
Thank you. Council comments.
Well, I was just wanted to make sure with 58% of the Lowell residents that, what are they actually thinking? Are they thinking I want to grow some plants of my own and have personal? Do I want to be able to drive somewhere in town to pick it up? Do I just want to just have it in general? I know Grand Rapids looks like they're going to be opting into 56 stores for that part of it. So I wish there was a few more people here tonight to speak on behalf of what that 58% wanted, or the 41% didn't want. So wish we had some more information.
Great.
No, I also was surprised by the percentage being as high as it was in Lowell. I agree with Jim, it'd be nice to hear from more people. We have a pretty small sampling here speaking tonight.
Mark?
I think Jim hit it right on the nail head. More feedback, more information, it's always a good thing. 3 people isn't quite enough.
I feel the same way. I also would like to know what people who voted yes were voting for. Were you voting for using it in your basement and not having to worry about the cops kicking down your door? Or were you voting yes for them selling it next to Speedway or wherever it is they decide? The problem is we don't have 6 months to let other people do all the hard trial and error work. And we don't know what Lara is going to do because they have up to a year. And it's Lara, they're going to take a year. And I was hoping we'd have, what did we have for medical at 30-something comments? I was hoping we'd have something close to that, but we didn't. So I'm not, Mike and Dick, I don't know what we do next year.
Well,
I don't feel like we've made any headway, you know, and I don't think a lot of people read the proposal. I think a lot of people thought recreational marijuana and then they clicked yes, right? But there's a lot of stuff in that proposal. And I'm guaranteeing, I can guarantee not everybody who voted yes read that proposal. Word for word, point for point. Steve, anything?
I don't have any comment
Good.
We know we can't vote on this today because the State Board of Canvassers
Hasn't met to certify the vote. The plan is that they have to, the Board of Canvassers is planning to meet next Monday. When the vote is certified, I assume it'll be certified that day. We have 10 days to make a decision. If you do nothing, it's here. If you want to vote on it, whether yes or no, it has to be done before December 6th. Obviously, we have a couple of issues here. We have, right now, we only have 4 council members, and it would need to be a 4-0 vote to opt out. And if also, we also have a council member who's taking a well-earned vacation in that time period, so we really only have about 2 days. So you probably would need to meet, you would probably need to, if you want to do so, you probably need to have a special meeting sometime between the 27th and the 29th, from what I understand, in order to have 4 council members present.
It's going to be certified on the 26th. I will say I've talked to a couple of different people, and it sounds like both townships are going to be opting out.
Okay.
So if we opt in, then we're the go-to for all the applications. They're not going to have Polly's and Jets building because the townships are going to opt out. They're not going to have north and south of town. So it's another thing. It's not official, I haven't seen anything officially on it, but that's the word. So that's another thing we have to think about.
But, just to add to the comments that,
No, I think you're on.
just to add to the comments that have already been made, and part of this is speculation on my part, but maybe the fact that you haven't gotten a lot of public comment this evening has to do with the fact that this really is two separate proposals when you think about it. One is, the right of a private person to have recreational marijuana, and that's law. That won't change. That is true, subject to some restrictions. It can't be in a public place, so it really has to be within a person's home or someone else's home. You're allowed to possess, you're allowed to transport 2.5 ounces of marijuana. You're allowed to have 10 plants within your own home as long as it's not open and visible. And you're allowed to have 10 ounces in your own home. Plus you're allowed to give away, not sell, but give away 2.5 ounces at any time to someone else. That's the one part that will become law on December 6th, regardless of anything that you do as council members. The other part is the location of establishments within the city, and there you have the right to opt out. If you don't opt out, then the potential exists, there's no guarantee, but the potential exists that one or all of the 6 different types of establishments could locate within the city. You then would have to adopt probably zoning ordinance amendments so you could identify where those locations might be. You also have the right to limit the number. You can't, however, limit it just to retail sale. You have to allow each of the separate types, at least one of each of the separate types, of the way we currently interpret the statute. So if you did nothing, you would then at some point in the future have to adopt ordinances that would deal with the location of these establishments. The establishments cannot, however, under any circumstance, be located within 1,000 feet. I think I've mentioned this before, of a public or private school, and could not be located within any residentially zoned area where the only use, so you couldn't put, as someone had suggested, you couldn't put one of these establishments in someone's home. The other thing that gets a little confusing here is that proposal 1 had nothing to do with medical marijuana. It has to do with recreational marijuana. So there's nothing within this proposal that would, any action that you would do with respect to this proposal would have nothing to do with medical marijuana.
Dick, do you agree with this gentleman's interpretation that a certain number of registered voters can sign a petition? And
No. No, in fact, I just pulled a provision in the statute which says, let me see if I can spot it quickly, Greg. The only thing that you can petition, and it's 5% of the votes cast for governor in the last election, is either one of two things: to completely prohibit. So let's suppose a community does nothing, then they could prohibit if it put it on the ballot